Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us with today's webinar. We're going to be focusing around Nebula towards the hospitality vertical. I am joined by my colleague Nigel.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I cover the UK side of Zysel products from a sales engineering point of view. I'm going to keep an eye on the questions and chat for Danny. So if you can hold answering questions back to the end, that would be great. But if there's anything urgent and you want to put it into the chat, I'll do my best to answer it in real time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Yeah, so my name's Daniel Marsh. I'm the UK sales engineer, and I specifically look after the northern side of things. So if you've got any sort of technical questions or anything we can help you with, just feel free to contact us offline and we can always assist you. So as I say, today we're going to be looking at Nebula, focus for the hospitality. So as always, I'm going to go through the basics of Nebula and sort of introduce it to yourselves. So one of the things that you look for in modern day and age at the moment with traditional networking, when you implement an infrastructure, there is a lot of man hours and infrastructure involved and a lot of monetary value spent. So one of the things that you need to look at doing is obviously purchasing the equipment. This can either be like a leasing, but we're never going to be able to get away from purchasing the physical equipment. We then need to look at obviously installing the equipment, which can involve sort of a pre-installation or very sort of complex installation procedures when on site, trying to minimize downtime for the clients. Then you will implement some sort of monitoring equipment. So this would be sort of SNMP traps, ICMP, and potentially like a syslog server, just so that you can maintain the network and have a look at the latency and things like that. Then you would set up some form of access to the equipment. Now this could be done via NAT rules, which can be quite insecure. You'll have to lock it down with like your firewall and things such as that. And then you've also got like the more secure methods such as VPN and MPLS networks, which can be quite complex to set up and also to manage as well. Then you might want to set up some form of monitoring platform. So this can either be some sort of paid option such as SolarWinds, or it can be like an open source such as Zabbix. These do require a lot of time to set up, especially if it's quite a big network. It can be very costly, and in regards to your time, obviously time is money, so we want to try and minimize the amount of time you spend setting up monitoring for the infrastructure. Then you'll set up some form of data storage. So this might be an on-premise server, it could be a virtual platform, or even sort of cloud servers, all of which requires money to invest on hardware or storage requirements, depending on what sort of platform you're looking at. Then obviously when everything's in regards to managing it, you do have a quite a complex routine to do updates and settings changes, which ultimately can be very costly, and if done incorrectly can cause quite a lot of downtime and disruption for your clients. Then you'll need to set up some form of user and device management. So this could be some form of Radius server, or it could be some sort of Active Directory integration. So what we look for with Nebula is trying to streamline this process, making it easy for yourself so that you can concentrate on ultimately generating further business, further projects, and minimizing the amount of time it takes to roll out a project to your clients. So again, one of the steps that we need to take is purchasing the equipment. As I've stated, there's no way of getting around this. Then we need to install the equipment. Now, traditionally speaking, it would take quite a long time, pre-installation, build it up in your lab, and then roll it out to the customer sites. With the Nebula, you can get it up and running in a matter of 5 to 10 minutes. You set it all up on the cloud platform, and then it'll just download its configuration, and then it's pretty much up and running for you to run your initial testing when you're on site. The monitoring equipment is a step that we can leave out because all the monitoring is done on the cloud platform, so the Nebula Control Center. As is access to the equipment that is also available in a web browser, which also supports two-factor authentication as well for security reasons, meaning that you can access all the equipment easily without having to create VPNs or any NAT rules, which could open your customers up for vulnerabilities. Then the monitoring platform, because it's all hosted on the cloud, the monitoring is all done on the Nebula Control platform, so no need to purchase any equipment such as SolarWinds or setting up Zabbix. As I say, it can be very complex to set up them sort of software platforms. The data storage, because it's all stored on the cloud, you do get the data with it. On the free version, you get 7-day roll-ins of any sort of historical data, but with the professional pack, you can get up to 365 days. We've simplified all the updates and the settings changes so that you can do it all on the cloud. There is certain facilities to protect you and allow you to roll back as well if there are any potential issues. User and device management, there is a built-in cloud management in the actual portal, and it does also support Radius as well as Active Directory as well, just being able to manage your guests as well as your staff users. So just to give you a bit of an insight, the Nebula platform is hosted on what's called AWS, so this is the Amazon Web Services. It is used by quite a number of large organisations, and it does support over 600 government agencies and 2,400 educational establishments. So it's a very secure platform, and it does come with quite a lot of accreditations as well. It is also key to understand that the only traffic which gets logged on the platform itself is management and the log, so where the analyticals as such. Any internet traffic does break out locally, so it doesn't actually touch any of our hosted platform. So just to make you aware of that, because some people are scared of what the cloud can offer and the vulnerabilities it can pose to your clients. This is a list of all the accreditations which Nebula inherit by using the AWS platform. As you can see, it does have quite a long list of them on there, showing that it is a very secure platform and it is trusted globally. So just go through the sort of procedure that we go through with Nebula. There's sort of 3 steps to get your network up and running. These steps don't specifically have to be done in any particular order. You can set up your site before you even get the equipment. So you can log onto the platform, you can build the network, then order the equipment. Once you get the equipment, it is just a case of registering the devices on the Nebula control panel, either on the web browser or using the app. This will be a serial number and MAC address, which is obviously specific to that particular device. And then you plug in the Nebula device, and then it's pretty much up and working in about 5 minutes after it's downloaded all its configurations. So you can set it up without unboxing it. So all our latest access points are being shipped out with QR codes on the physical box, which you can scan with the app, and it will automatically add it into the specific site you need it to. So it's just a case of unboxing it, plugging it in. This does help installations where you don't have to send quite a highly paid engineer to go and install the access points. It is just a case of making sure they have an active internet connection, and then at that point it will download everything it needs without the people on site needing to know too much of what they're actually configuring, helping to streamline that installation process. So as we've touched on, it can be up and running in a couple of minutes. So pretty much you scan the QR code, you plug it in, wait a few minutes, there's a little red light that comes on, it starts flashing. Once you see that red light, you know it's contacted the Nebula Control Center. It's in the process of downloading its configuration. So at that point, you just let it run around and do what it needs to do. So from an engineering point of view, once you've set it up in the Nebula Control Center, you can just sit back, relax, and just make sure you get the equipment ordered and you get it installed in the correct areas. It's also worth noting as well, there is a facility where you can take a picture of the actual access point with a mobile phone, and you can upload that to the actual device on the control center, so it shows a physical location of where it is. And you can also pinpoint that on a floor map as well, making any troubleshooting in the future, any replacements of kit, quite easy, because you can direct the engineers to exactly where it is. You can access it anywhere. So using all the main browsers, it is supported across them all. You can log into it on your laptop, and it's even got quite a friendly mobile view as well. So you can configure, monitor, and fault find wherever you are, as long as you do have a stable internet connection. So we do have, as I say, we do have an app which is supported by both iOS and Android. There are always a lot of features being added to the specific app. So at the moment, you can do certain things such as changing SSIDs, adding VLAN taggings, monitoring your equipment, having a look at your PoE utilization, what devices are currently connected. As I say, it is always being enhanced, so any feedback to certain features that might be required is always taken into consideration when speaking to our customers. But as you can see, it's very simple, and you can just use it on your mobile and have a look at the entire network, and it does work on a multi-tier site view as well. So you can manage all your clients in one place. So from an MSP to an organization to a site, it can all be done via your mobile and via the web browser as well. It is that simple. So just to have a quick look at the specific views you've got. So this is the MSP portal, which will show you a list of all your organizations. It will show you the type of subscription they've got, if they've got one, in which case it will show you the status of the license, and it will also show you the expiry date as well. Because it's an organization view, you can see how many sites you've got and how many devices are on across all of them sites as well, any which might be offline or any that might need a partial upgrade or something like that. An organization view, so you can physically see on a map where all your organizations are sat, and it gives you a quick sort of site health down at the bottom, showing you how many clients are connected, the general health of the site itself, so if any devices are offline, and it just helps you narrow down and being able to drill down and fault find a lot easier. Then moving down the scale, you do have a site view. So the screen that's on in front of you now is basically showing you how many access points there are and how many are online. Same with the switches and for the gateway. It shows you how many clients you've got connected across your access points. And it also shows your PoE budget as well, meaning that you can really keep an eye on your switches, knowing that if you're going to add any further access points, you might need to look at purchasing some further switches, depending on the PoE budget. And depending on how many WAN ports you've got as well, you can actually monitor the upload and download as well in real time on that. And on the right hand side, it does give you a real-time application traffic summary, which shows you the most used apps and things like that in like a pie chart format, so you can see what people's been going on. So one of the important things is, especially in hospitality, if for instance you win a project for a hotel chain, typically speaking, they're going to be configured in a similar sort of method. So once you've done the first one, you do have the ability to create configuration templates, which can then mirror the site-wide changes, and then you can just make specific changes to that branch. You can clone settings of switches and access points, making things like that a lot easier, just meaning that you can sort of roll out branches of the hotels or any other sort of vertical very easily. And obviously backup and being able to restore at certain areas. So if you make any changes that might cause issues, you can always roll it back to a more stable version. So just giving you that peace of mind and that security, so you can just sit back and relax when it comes to managing your clients. So in hospitality, IPTV is used quite a lot. So the Nebula portfolio does support IPTV, so it supports the multicast control, the IGMP. It allows you to monitor and report on the channels which are being used by how many users across your hotel for analytical purposes. And you can and it automatically optimizes the network as well from a very good machine learning algorithm in the background that helps optimize the IPTV traffic as well, meaning that rather than it stuttering and cutting out and things like that, it is optimized to provide the users the best experience. And it does provide you with some sort of advanced reporting options as well. So just to give you a quick look at some of the reporting that it provides, so you can see how many channels you've got, how many are in use, and how many current viewers you've got. All of this can obviously be drilled down to a specific date as well, and enhanced for the amount of channels that you're looking at, just being able to provide your customers them analytic details when they request them. It does have a built-in guest captive portal as well, so being able to get customers connected to your access point, they are then displayed with a captive portal which can be customized internally on the control panel, or it can be done as an external captive portal as well, where you'll accept the terms and conditions, and you can also point it to like a promotional URL. So as promotions are rolled out across the franchises, you can then update that and allow the customers as soon as they log on to see what promotions are available to them. So it's very good in what it does, and as I say, it does work with an external capture portal as well. So if they have got something in place at the moment and you're looking for a project, just give us a call and we can discuss the requirements and see if it's compatible. The chances are that it will be, in which case they don't have to make any changes to sort of their HTML or anything like that. You can just roll it out. So one thing that we do need to sort of understand is sort of the licensing side of things. So Nebula is free, and it provides you a lot of functionality that will work in most environments. You then have got a professional pack, which you can either pay for on an annual basis, or you can purchase a lifetime license. It's also key to remember as well, with some products you do get like a year free or a 3-year free with a Pro Pack, meaning that what you can do is actually just pay a top-up license, which is a smaller value than buying the actual lifetime, and turn it into a lifetime registration. So it just means that you won't have any renewals and it just carry on working for as long as you're using it. So some of the things that it does give you on the professional pack, which is important to bear in mind, is it will provide you 365 days of client monitoring and device logs instead of 7 days rolling. One thing that I do like is it does do an automatic visual topology as well. So when it comes to what an access point is plugged into, what a switch is plugged into, it builds all this and shows you on a very, very user-friendly screen, helping you to narrow down and know exactly where things are. And if you've got pictures of the devices as well, you obviously know physically where they are situated on site. And with the Pro version, this is where you will do the site cloning and the configurations and the backup and restore. So as I say, the professional pack is definitely always worth looking into. If you're going to go into the gateway side of things, we do have a security pack which provides you the application patrol, the IDP, the antivirus, and the content filtering. So that's always something to bear in mind if you're going to get a gateway, depending on what the client's requirements are, what sort of security do they want. So you're not forced to obviously have them in any particular order. You can just use Nebula free and just get the security pack, for instance. You can get all three of them, so the professional pack and the security pack, or you can just get the security pack. It's very flexible in what you can do with it. And some of the ranges that we've got in the Nebula portfolio, so we've got the NSGs, which are the gateways, we've got the NSWs, which are the switch, and then we've got the access points as well, so the NAP, which are Nebula access points. So today we're only going to be really concentrating on the switch and the access points, and narrow down on some of the technology within them to assist your clients. If you do have any questions in regards to the gateways, then feel free to contact us offline and I can sort of run through exactly what you get with them as well. So with our access points here at Zyzor, we do put a lot of effort into research and development, making sure that the user experience is always maintained. So one thing that we always look at doing is putting shielding in, making sure that it's obviously reduced interference and sort of signal to noise ratio. We also do incorporate some of our chips. We do actually provide some form of shielding around there as well to help it so that it doesn't interfere with it. Some vendors don't have this sort of technology. So when you start cranking up the power on it, it does start causing its own interference and it hinders performance. So here at Zyzor, we understand that, and we put a lot of time and effort into how we design our specific access points. The access points are backed by a lifetime warranty. So if the access point does ever go end of life, you do get the warranty for an additional 5 years after that. And there's always notifications if that ever is the case. So just to sort of touch on the access points, so you've got the NAP series, which all come with a 3-year Pro Pack. You've got the 2x2 antennas, the 3x3s, and then you've also got an external one as well, which requires sort of external antennas, so like omnidirectional antennas. The NAP 3x3 would be good, for instance, in a hotel environment for like outdoors, when they're using for like wedding venues and things like that. You'd be able to deploy these and provide them with a good user experience outside, where traditionally you wouldn't be able to get that. So we've got some of our other ranges as well, which are the Nebula Flex devices. So for you that aren't aware, the Nebula Flex is a firmware upgrade that can be applied to some of the supported access points to bring them onto the Nebula platform. So if you do have any of these models out there in the field at the moment that potentially won't be on the latest firmware, they might not be Nebula enabled now, but all you've got to do is upgrade them, and then you can onboard them for no cost at all, because as I say, Nebula does have a free element to it as well. One of the ones which are quite favoured, especially in the hospitality environment, are the NWA 1123 ACHDs. It's a 3x3 antenna, and it's one of our Wave 2 products as well as the NWA 1123 AC Pro. So for any of you that go around and see access points installed on the wall, the internal optimized antenna does have a physical switch that you can press, which actually changes the radio pattern, which I'll go through later on, to minimize interference and improve coverage if it is installed on a wall. And that takes us to our NWA 1302 AC, which is a flat panel unit, which ultimately will be fitted on the wall. It comes with a dynamic smart antenna, which again, I'll go into in a bit more detail later. But one of the key things to bear in mind with this, it does have a like a little switch on the bottom of it. So in regards to additional network ports, one of which does produce PoE. So for instance, you could put a VoIP phone and have it plugged directly into the access point, and then you could have a smart TV, for instance, plugged into one of the other ports, so minimizing the amount of devices which need the wireless and providing them a full Cat5 connection or Cat6 connection directly to the specific devices. In the hospitals, in the hotels, when it comes to VoIP phones, it is key to think that obviously you can plug it directly in, minimizing the amount of cables you have to run around the building as well. So it's very favored for the hospitality environment. So on the screen here, there's just a couple I'm going to sort of touch on. So you can see that the ones which are green are the Nebula Flex devices, so they can be onboarded onto the Nebula portfolio. The WAC 6103DI, which does have an internal optimized antenna, is joining the Nebula family. I had an email today saying the update is going to be on around on the 24th. So again, if you've got these in deployment at the minute, they can't go on Nebula just yet, but give it a week, you'll be able to download the latest firmware, upgrade it, and then you'll be able to bring it onto the Nebula platform, which really does open up the amount of access points available to you for the Nebula portfolio. So here's also a few more which are joining the portfolio as well this month. One of which is a flat panel external unit. So it's got a built-in antenna, so you don't need your external antennas to be able to connect to it, which also contains our dynamic smart antenna. So this is quite good for external places. So if they've got, if you mount them on a pole, you stick 4 on a pole, you'll be able to get a full coverage. Quite good for caravan sites. So if you're trying to win a project to install external wireless into caravans or campsites, then this is the sort of project that you would want to look at. As well as with our ruggedized switches as well, they can be mounted like in a pole and can cope with real cold weather as well. The WAC 6503DS is also a dynamic smart antenna, which is coming into the portfolio. It really does help the user experience to use it in high density areas where there's going to be a lot of clients. So you're thinking sort of conference halls, maybe even schools where there's going to be a lot of devices connecting to it. This is where you'd look at rolling this out. We've also got the WAC 6303DS, which is a smart antenna and also has a Bluetooth beaconing as well, allowing sites like retailers and things like that to push out promotions and things like that if the devices support the Bluetooth beaconing. And that's also a Wave 2 product. So we do have a lot of access points in the portfolio that can pretty much meet all your customers' demands. So just to give you a look of our what access points are available currently. So these are all the ones which are either Nebula or Nebula Flex, and then you've got the ones which are coming out this month. It's key to note that you do get 3 years with some. You do get 3 year, which is 1 year plus a promo of an extra 2 year as well for the NWA 5123 ACHD. and the WAX 6303DS. You will see that some of them do support the smart meshing. So for you that aren't aware, smart mesh is a way of creating like a wireless link from one access point to the other. And what it does is if it's set up and the access point supports it, if it ever loses LAN connectivity, it will actually send out a hidden beacon where it will actually look for an access point that it can connect to wirelessly to maintain that network connectivity. So think of areas where you want to extend the Wi-Fi because you can't get any cables there for a LAN connection. You can create a wireless mesh and allow you to get around there. Sometimes it comes in handy for like listed buildings as well. So, and you can see some of them can be either set in standalone mode. I can either use one of our controllers, so like our NXC or our USG range. And they all support the NCC, which is the Nebula Control Center. The Wi-Fi health support is also coming out on a few products already, which basically allows it to dynamically change the channel and reduce the RSSI signal to actually reduce interference and improve the user's experience as well. So a lot of really good technology has gone into this this product in the portfolio, and it does work as it says on the tin. So as I've mentioned, if you do have any switches which are Nebula Flex supported, then it is just a case of upgrading the firmware, which you can download from our FTP site. So if you don't have access to that already, feel free to reach out to us because we can provide you the link for that. And then you can just upgrade it. One thing as well to bear in mind is with some of the licensing side of things, when you license a device, so say for instance you go for the lifetime, it's actually specific to the site. So if you have a faulty access point or you replace one because you want to upgrade it, then the licensing will still cover the new access point. It won't go with the old access point. That'll be pretty much unlicensed, but the new access point will inherit the license, which is a very good feature because it allows you to keep up with the times with the technology, and especially with our AX access points as well coming out towards the end of the year. So what sort of challenges of wireless do we have in today's environment? As I mentioned, the internal optimized antenna is a way of being able to fit the access points physically onto the wall rather than the ceiling. A lot of vendors do this, and a lot of vendors have them installed on the walls where they don't have this sort of technology in it. So what you find is that when you install it, it actually creates sort of interference with the different levels. And as you can see on the right-hand side picture, it reduces the amount of coverage as well on the level that it's actually installed because of how it broadcasts its wireless signal. When you've got an internal optimized antenna and you switch on the feature, it actually pushes it out, meaning that you enhance your coverage and reduce any interference with any lower levels. As I say, this diagram really does show you what the internal optimized antennas do in regards to that specific feature. So it's just something to bear in mind. If you're going to install any access point on the walls, just make sure it's got the facility to do this, because otherwise you might cause more problems and give yourself a bit of a headache when it comes to troubleshooting as well. One of the other technologies that we've implemented into our access point is the smart antenna. Now, smart antenna is designed to increase capacity, reduce interference, to increase the coverage. And because of how this smart antenna works, it means that you can actually reduce the power consumption required by the access point, meaning that it's not having much of a draw either. And this is available on like 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz as well. So what it actually does is it will provide a client out of 700 optimized patterns. It takes less than 100 milliseconds to provide this, and what it does is it actually shapes the beam towards a client, reducing any specific interference. And as a client actually moves round, it's going to help reduce the interference and to maintain a good level of modulation. One of the important things to know about this is that if you've got a client at the end of the signal with a very poor modulation, because of how the timing mechanism works on the actual access point and how it modulates, it actually pulls down everybody else who's connected to the access point, even if they've got a decent signal. With this technology, that doesn't happen. It maintains a good level of modulation for people with a real bad signal, but it doesn't actually impact anybody else on who's connected to the access point because of how it provides a unique radio pattern per client. It is best used in sort of high density areas where you think you will suffer interference. And me and one of the MDMs do have a standing joke that we say that if a smart antenna doesn't fix it, then there is no way to fix it. So it just really shows you what the smart antenna can do for your clients' expectations when it comes to their wireless connections. So we're just going to sort of touch on the switches of what's available at the moment. We've got currently 2 Nebula Flex switches, which is the GS1920 version 2. So these are all gigabit switches with SFP modules in it. The largest PoE budgets are like on the 24 port and the 48 port. They will provide you a 375 watt PoE budget or PoE plus budget. And it also supports protocols such as STP, so spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, and also link aggregation as well. And it does, on the higher models, does support the L2 multicast as well for the IPTV side of things. The XGS 1930 is our 10 gig backbone switch, so it does have SFP plus ports on it, so it has 4 of them on the higher models, meaning that you can actually improve the backbone of your network by offering a 10 gig fiber connection as well, supporting the same protocols as the GS version as well. So the NSW are the cloud managed only switches. So these can only be managed by Nebula, whereas the other 2 can be managed locally as well. These come in the 10, 24, and 24 with the PoE equivalents. And it does provide on the 24 port 10 gig backbone on that as well, with a 375 watt PoE plus budget again. So, and you do get a 1 year free as well with the Nebula Pro pack on that. So it's just worth knowing that, as well as the fact it does support virtual stacking as well. So these are the switches which are supported, and it just shows you what you get in terms of the Pro pack and whether or not you can manage it standalone or in the Nebula Control Center. So we're going to have a quick look at the PoE section because I find this quite relevant in regards to what it can actually offer hospitalities. So we do support PoE, which is a class 3 PoE plus, and the PoE plus plus, so 60 watt, also known as Ultra PoE. At the moment, obviously, the switches that are available, there are going to be more coming out towards the end of the year, so you will see more switches join the portfolio, allowing you greater specification on any projects that you might have coming up. So one of the things that we've implemented is what's called consumption mode. So it allows you the device will intelligently monitor PoE of the actual device, so whether it be a class 3 or a class 4 device, and it will actually provide the PoE budgeting according to what it actually needs, not what it's classified as. You do have PoE control on each port, meaning that you can prioritize the power, and you can also obviously power down the specific ports and things like that as well. One of the key things to know as well is the eco powering scheduling. So you can actually set up scheduling of PoE, so you can turn off specific access points in areas that aren't going to be used during the evenings, throughout the night, and things like that. Just helping minimize the amount of power that is consumed by the switches. So it's very good in how it actually works. So if you've got like a class 3 device, so like our NWA 5123AC, it's classified as a class 3, which means it requires 15.4 watts. So if we was to implement 24 of these, that would take us up to like 369.6 watts. Whereas in consumption mode, it actually only requires 9 watts to function, which means you can actually, for the 24 that you install, you'll only be using 216 watts of your budget, meaning that you can maximize the amount of access points you can get onto any specific switches. So you don't have to install any additional switches, which also adds to the cost as well as the implementation of it as well. This also obviously works with the sort of class 4 devices as well. So the WAC 6502DS with a smart antenna, This is classified for requiring 30 watts, which ultimately, if you was to implement 200 of them, would provide you with a 600 watt budget required for the switch. Whereas in consumption mode, it only uses 320, so you can see the saving that you are actually getting on your switches when you use it in consumption mode. So case studies that we've got is the Salutation Inn. So this is a grade 1 listed building, and they were struggling and using a conventional router for their wireless connectivity. They've got multiple outbuildings, which was ultimately all independent of each other. So when it came to internal communications, internal file transfers, it was very difficult for them to be able to run a day-to-day business. With the Nebula portfolio, we managed to bring all that under one platform, allowing VLANs for their staff and to separate them from the guests, allowing for captive portals. And because of obviously how it's designed, there had to be quite a strategic installation to make sure that all the access points and everything was hidden. But now, rather than relying on sort of poor mobile signals and things like that, they do have the option now of using instant messaging over the wireless to contact each other. They use VoIP phones as well internally to enhance the communications and to provide guests with phones for the rooms that they're actually in. And then it just really simplifies how they run their day-to-day business and saves them a lot of worry and heartache, especially when it comes to any emergencies. It could be very difficult to contact the relevant people because of the limited amount of cellular coverage and access they had to the internet. So they really was knocked back when they saw how well the Nebula products and our access points actually improve their day-to-day life. We do have a case study as well, which is hopefully will be out in the next couple of months, which is a hotel in Amsterdam, which is completely off-grid. Now, what they've done is they've utilised all of the Nebula portfolio and used Zyxel for the entire project. And what we've done is we've managed to reduce their energy consumption by using the PoE scheduling, making sure that access points are turned off in certain areas, phones are turned off in certain areas, so that when they're not using them and it's outside of peak time, we reduce their energy consumption because obviously with it being off grid, they rely on renewable energies. So obviously Nebula's got a green theme, and that's obviously where we look at making sure that is economical for this day and age, making sure we're doing our bit for the planet as well and reducing all this energy consumption. So that really concludes today's webinar around hospitality industries. So we do have a Q&A section now. If you do have any questions, feel free to post them across, and then we can have a look and hopefully answer as many of them as possible. So I will keep the webinar open for a few minutes just to allow you to generate any specific questions. Okay, so it doesn't seem that we've got any questions. So either I've explained everything clearly or some of you may have fallen asleep. So I do apologize if that is the case. Oh, we do have just one come through.
I think there might be one just come in, Danny.
So in regards to any ongoing costs for any of the access points, not just the NAPs, there isn't any additional cost. You can onboard them onto Nebula for free, but if you want to take benefits of the sort of professional pack for the reporting features, the site templates and things like that, then you will want to obviously look at taking out the Pro Pack, which, as I say, can be an annual charge, or you can do a one-off lifetime payment as well, meaning that you won't have any additional ongoing costs. So you can buy the full solution where it doesn't actually cost you anything apart from the initial project value, as long as you obviously cater into the lifetime licenses as well. So as I say, it's not like some of our competitors where if you miss a renewal date or anything like that, it actually chops off your internet connection and results in quite a expensive paperweights. It will continue to function and it will actually just switch back to the free version. Okay. So in regards to your question, Raymond, in regards to did you miss how to switch the horizontal and vertical setting on the access point, there is if you log into the GUI, there is an ability to do it as like a soft button as such on the GUI, but there is also a physical button on the actual unit. So if you're going to, as soon as you know that you're going to fit it to a wall, plug it in, power it on, press the button, and then it's in the internal optimized mode, allowing you to install it on a wall and reduce the interference and sort of push it out as well. So in regards to adding more items to the Nebula portfolio, we are looking at moving a lot of devices over to Nebula. So with us having the Nebula Flex and the Nebula platform, we give the ability to either have in standalone mode for them people who prefer it, and then we're also giving the ability to move the equipment over to Nebula if you think that's where you want to it to fit. So no, you don't need an on-site controller anymore, but you do have the ability to obviously use the on-site controller if you do require. So it just gives you that flexibility depending on what your customers are after. Some people are scared of what the cloud means and having everything accessible through a web browser, but as I say, it does support two-factor authentication as well. So if you've got the app on your phone and people, for instance, get hold of your credentials for the Nebula Control Center, they will need your physical phone in order to log into it. So you do have that security as well. But no, ultimately, you can move everything over to the Nebula Control Center at some point. We've got quite a few access points joining it at the end of this month, and then it will allow you to manage them all on the actual web on the web GUI itself, so on the portal. So in regards to a customer portal in Nebula, do you mean where the customer can log into it and manage their own devices? If that is what you mean, what they can do is that you would create a Nebula account under your name, which ultimately you can have many organizations, many customers in there. Then what you can also do is provide an administrator account for a specific site to another email address or like another Nebula registration. So if they create their own Nebula portal, you can add them as an administrator, then they can manage certain things as well. So in regards to agreeing the terms and conditions, yeah, so you have the captive portal. So it presents them when they log on with a Wi-Fi, present them with a bespoke built captive portal based on your requirements. You've got the ability to do that. And yes, they can agree to the terms and conditions for the Wi-Fi as well. Okay, that looks like we might have managed to get through all them questions. Is there any more questions? I can keep it open for a couple more minutes. Okay, well, that seems to be everything. So I'll end the webinar now. So I do thank you all for your participation. Nigel for helping me, obviously, answer the questions.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Well.
Yeah, so, and obviously, if anyone wants to come back to us on anything, then please feel free.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. So thank you ever so much for your time today. We will be hosting another webinar in the next sort of couple of weeks, so keep an eye on your emails and feel free to get registered onto that as well. If you've got any feedback in regards to the webinar, what you would like to see in any future webinars as well, feel free to reach out to us because we do take our customer feedback seriously and make sure we tailor our content as well to what the interest is of our customers. So again, thank you all for your time today. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. And I hope wherever you are, the weather is better than where I am and it's nice and sunny for you. So thank you ever so much and have a good day.
Thank you very much, everyone. Cheers. Thanks, Danny.
Bye-bye.